Welcome to this presentation about penalty time, which has been developed by the England and Wales Cricket Board's Association of Cricket Officials. This presentation uses an example scenario to cover the changes to the penalty time law and how it is practically applied. There has been a meaningful change to the law that impacts how penalty time is applied. If a player is injured as a result of the ball or bat hitting them, or for some other reason the umpires deem acceptable, then the player will not be penalised at all. However, for all other injuries or absences, as soon as the player leaves the field, they begin to incur penalty time. This must be served before they can either bat or bowl. We will shortly run through an example, but here are the key principles. Any playing time off the field counts as penalty time. The laws limit the amount of penalty time a player can accrue, up to 90 minutes maximum. Once a player is able to come back, the amount of outstanding penalty time starts to reduce. However, if they leave the field again before the time has reached zero, the time remaining is carried forward. So if a player is off for 30 minutes, returns for 15 minutes, and then leaves the field again, they still have 15 minutes of penalty time to serve, plus however long they are away this time. It is key to record the coming and going of players together with your colleague. Once it rains, things get tricky. The laws define times when play is not taking place as either scheduled or non-scheduled intervals. Scheduled intervals are drinks, lunch, tea, between innings and overnight in multi-day games. If a player is off for 60 minutes, back for 20 minutes, they have a 40-minute penalty to serve. However, if it is then time for lunch, what happens? As lunch is a scheduled interval, when play then restarts, there is still 40 minutes of penalty time outstanding. However, if it rains or the game is stopped for any other unanticipated reason, this is an unscheduled interval. So if a player tells you that they are ready to come back on but cannot do so because play is suspended, then the remaining time until play starts or a scheduled interval arrives can be deducted from the outstanding penalty time. This is providing they return when the play resumes or their side is then batting. It sounds complicated, but when we look at an example, you will see how it works. If a fielder has unserved penalty time at the end of the innings, it is carried forward and they are not allowed to bat or to act as a runner until this amount of time has elapsed in the next innings. The laws do allow a batsman with penalty time still to be served to bat once their side has lost its fifth wicket. Although this explanation covers the majority of the law, there are some further technical details you may want to revisit and familiarise yourself with, such as situations where a player is suspended under Law 42. There is also additional complexity under these circumstances if the offending or injured player is a wicketkeeper, concerning whether a substitute can keep wicket or not. Let's look at an example of this in practice to demonstrate how all of this fits together and as a result what you as the umpire will have to do. When Smith needs to leave the field, it is important to know whether his injury was the result of a blow. Had he been hit by the ball and hurt a finger, for example, then the whole question of penalty time does not arise. Umpires should tell the player and the captain, once they have decided it is appropriate, that on departure, penalty time will begin to accrue. Together, umpires should record the time the player leaves the field and the reason why. This requires more cooperation and discussion than has been needed before, where the 15-minute window that used to exist was often sufficient for a lot of situations. But now, a bowler going off at the end of his over and coming back at the end of the next one will not be allowed to bowl. Let's assume that Smith's reason for departure resulted in accrued penalty time. Smith has been off for 45 minutes, and then it rains. Play recommences 20 minutes later. Note that during the non-scheduled interval, no further penalty time has been accrued. However, during the rain delay, Smith has not told you he is ready to come back. Therefore, the amount of penalty time is frozen at 45 minutes. 45 minutes after play restarts, Smith still hasn't returned to the field. The amount of penalty time has now reached 90 minutes, the maximum penalty time allowed. So, no further time will be added. Umpires should agree that the maximum penalty time has been reached and notify the fielding captain. At 2:15, play is suspended again. Smith has 90 minutes of penalty time outstanding at this point. During the interval, Smith tells you he is now fit and ready to resume. Even though play is not yet underway, the outstanding penalty time begins to reduce due to the break in play being non-scheduled. Play resumes 30 minutes later and there is still 60 minutes of penalty time outstanding. Umpires should agree the amount of penalty time remaining and let both Smith and his captain know before play resumes. We recommend informing the captain of the batting side at this point too. The terrible weather means that after 10 minutes of play, you are off again, but you decide that tea will be taken immediately. The 10 minutes of play that was possible has reduced the remaining penalty time to 50 minutes, but the 30-minute tea interval does not further reduce this, as it is a scheduled interval. Fortunately, play can now recommence at 3:30, but Smith's injury has worsened and now he cannot take the field. He still has 50 minutes of penalty time outstanding, and this will now increase again. It is recommended to give Smith and his captain an update before play resumes. At 4 o'clock, the innings closes. As Smith has not come back on, a further 30 minutes of penalty time has been accrued, meaning he now has 80 minutes left to serve. The 10-minute interval between innings is scheduled, so no further penalty time is added or removed. It is recommended that during this interval, the umpires advise Smith and both captains of the current situation and what it means in terms of when he can bat, at the same time informing the scorers. 70 minutes into the innings, the 5th wicket falls. Smith still has 10 minutes of penalty time to serve, but the laws allow him to bat immediately. In a 2-innings match where a player might carry penalty time into the next fielding innings, the principles are the same and you just need to apply the same rules. Even though the laws do not require you to do so, it is recommended to be proactive and inform the player, captains and, where possible, the scorer of the penalty time situation. We hope you have found this example useful. If you have any further questions, please contact your local ACO.